We're back here with our second interview of the day. I'm here with Josh Haraki, the talent acquisition manager with NUS
Truck and Equipment.
NUS Truck and Equipment. We're thrilled to have him here today. But before we get into that, there's something big happening tonight. And when this happens in sports, there's nothing better than a Game 7. There's nothing better than a Game 7. Edmonton and Florida, and one of two things is going to happen today. A Canadian team is going to win their first Stanley Cup in, 25, 30 years, which is crazy to think about, or a Florida team.
I don't know if we need another Florida team to win another title.
I'm over Tampa Bay.
Over Tampa Bay. Actually, Florida's won a title in the past before with Bert in net. I don't have a horse in the race this time. I don't have any players.
What's your prediction, Josh?
I'm going to give it to the Oilers. Hard for me to say, even though I don't really align with the Connor McDavids, the Leon Draisaitl's of the world. I've got other guys that I follow, but they're riding a 3-game winning streak heading into Game 7.
Momentum.
They're 0-3 going into the series. They win 3 straight, force a Game 7. Exactly the way the storybook is supposed to be written for the NHL, for Gary Bettman.
But they really won. They really won. I mean, they win the last game 5-1, right? Like there's momentum there. When we talk about momentum too, I think momentum is just a weird transition, but we talk about momentum in recruiting.
We do.
And one of the things that really upsets me is process paralysis when we get into recruiting. It's timelines. We're heading into the summer here, and one of the biggest complaints about candidates is the process taking too long. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys do over there, and how do you manage timelines and processes? How do you keep the trains and the trucks moving?
So, really for us, it's keeping it simple. When I came to NUS 3 years ago, they were hiring 40 people a year. I left at 40. When I left my previous organization, we were doing 9,000 hires a year. So you can see a huge disparity between where NUS is and where Fairview was in that volume. And what we did is we started to look at what can we change? How can we expedite things? And so we made things electronic. We informed candidates better about what the process was going to be. But what that was able to do is help us convert more talent and actually doubled our hiring rates than what they were previous highs.
I mean, if you focus on the process improvements, but it has to come down from the top, right?
Yeah.
It has to come down from leadership. I despise when everyone out there on LinkedIn and other places are trash talking recruiters. We're not the ones who formulate the process. It has to come down from leadership. But at the same time, we have to feel comfortable, and I'm a recruiter as well, in pushing back up to leadership. So how would you advise anybody in a similar position to you in talent acquisition to properly manage up to leadership?
First of all, you have to stop being the transactional agent in hiring and stop having your leaders seeing you as a transactional agent in your hiring. You are a strategic partner in driving organizational success. And so by talking through your leaders that way, explaining to them what's going to happen and how it's going to help them meet those goals simultaneously, everybody wins. But you have to stop giving up ground to your leaders. They're not above you. Without you hiring and bringing people in, the organization fails. So be that strategic partner, help them see that, and then continue to drive that vision forward.
And I think another factor, and leaders probably know this, but they don't, a flawed hiring process contributes to attrition. It is an endless, vicious cycle of hiring, people getting let go, people getting fired. If you don't fill that pipeline, what's going to happen is that people that are currently working in your organization are doing 2 or 3 times the work because it's taking 2 or 3 times as long to fill that role.
Yeah. It's, people will, a lot of your employees will want to do overtime, but not the sheer abundance of overtime that they're having to do right now because you don't have enough people.
They just don't want that at all. So you're also a bit of a media guy. You've been an OG for the last 11 years with Job Hunt Chat. Let's talk about what, before it was X, what was Twitter like 11 years ago before it is now?
Actually, Twitter back then was a community. You could actually have constructive, active dialogue. You could search hashtags. You could run multi-pipelines going on at any given time. And now X is kind of a dumpster fire of ad bots and
comment bots.
Yeah, it doesn't do what it needs to be. We've actually looked at moving Job Hunt Chat to another platform. Where could we host it? Is it Instagram worthy? No. Is it Threads worthy? Well, Threads didn't really take off.
So the fact it's connected to Instagram helps it a little bit.
Yeah. So we needed to. We're still working to find a new venue for it. We're still having conversations with candidates across the country about job seeking advice, but unfortunately, X just hasn't helped us.
Well, let's talk about Job Hunt. Tell everyone out there what the show's all about. What's the format of it?
So Job Hunt Chat's been going on since 10, 13 years ago. What it is, it's a weekly conversation about job seeking advice. We have questions moderated, usually from candidates. They'll ask us questions. Throughout the week, we'll field those questions, put it all together, and then practitioners and candidates across the country will join in and have active dialogue following those question threads.
So is it a podcast? Is it
No, it's just been a Q&A on Twitter.
just text?
Yeah, just text.
Wow.
We've done a few live sessions and a few live in-person locations, but it's been purely just conversation via text.
That's such an interesting idea too. I mean, I'm obviously a podcast host, and I think about other venues and mediums, but it pretty much is a text podcast. And I look at it like that too. Where else could this live? It's such an interesting concept.
We've thought about LinkedIn.
Well, LinkedIn's a great place for it too.
Yeah.
I think you can do groups on that too. But let's talk about the evolution of feedback from candidates. Has there been one common theme that you have seen over the last 11 years that has not changed as far as candidate feedback?
One, where am I at in the process? Why did I get declined?
Communication.
Speed,
Communication.
and communication.
At the end of the day, folks, it comes down to managing expectations on both sides. And managing expectations is a core fundamental principle on both sides. Yes, we all know that recruiters and hiring managers need to manage the process. But I also want candidates out there to take ownership of your own career and do your own due diligence. And if you're not getting feedback, be your own advocate. Reach back out. What's a good soft approach for a candidate who may not be getting feedback to check in?
Well, I always tell candidates, don't forget the dating rule. Do you remember the dating rule? When you go out on a first date, how long do you wait until you reply about a second?
Right. A day or two.
A day or two, or 3 days. You don't wait 7 because then the person thinks that you're no longer interested.
That's a good analogy.
But you don't do it the next day right away because you're going to seem desperate. So do the same thing. But oftentimes candidates don't know who to follow up with once they've applied or how to follow up.
Right. But there's a difference between applying into a black hole job board versus, first of all, I also define ghosting as if you apply to a company and you haven't heard back, for me, that's not ghosting because you're assuming that you're qualified. You may not be qualified with the role. You might be dumping it to the pipeline. For me, the definition of ghosting is if you had email or phone contact with a human being and they didn't reply to you. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
I totally agree.
So now let's get back to managing expectations there too and the timelines. Yes, wait a day or two.
Yeah.
Not longer.
No.
You don't want to push it any longer than that.
I've candidates that do it hours after they've applied.
That comes off as needy.
Extremely needy. I get where they're at, and sometimes I'll be kind enough and say, hey, you know what? Thanks for applying 3 hours ago. Give me your day or two to catch up on where things are at, and I'll see what I can do about getting you a status update.
Right. So I call it Posner's 4 Ps to any relationship. It's patient, polite, persistence, and provide value.
Yeah.
That's kind of the rules that I kind of live by from a business perspective, from a recruiting perspective. But let's hit the rewind button for a second. What was the impetus to start Job Hunt Chat?
So actually it was started by Rich DiMatteo, who was at Corn on the Job.
Corn on the Job.
That was his Twitter handle.
Corn on the Job, folks. Talk about corny handles.
Yeah. And he was getting married and decided to have kids, so he didn't want to, his business was taking off, Bad Rhino Media. And I'm like, well, here, I'll take it over. I was contributing as just a voice. I wasn't a moderator at the time. And he's like, hey, would you take this on? And I'm like, sure. So we continued it. We brought on moderators. People have come and gone as co-moderators for us. But that's where it started, was just having to finding a way to give back to the job seeking community. Because as we all know, job search really is a full-time job.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit here. And I always tell people, treat your job search as a full-time job.
Yeah. Track
it. Use documents. There's great platforms out there where candidates could track their jobs instead of
Excel spreadsheets.
I mean, that's how I started. When I was on the job hunt, I tracked when did I apply, who did I talk to,
which resume did you send.
Right, there's different versions of your resume too. Take ownership of your job search.
What did you feel about the job? Why did you think you were most qualified? What do you have for follow-up questions? Because you're gonna forget. But here's a tip: it doesn't need to sit in your Excel document on your laptop. Put it in your Google Drive, because you don't know when a recruiter's gonna call you. I call people at all times of the day. I'll call somebody at 7 o'clock at night because I know they're at home from their regular job, got done feeding their kids, and they're sitting at home watching ESPN, hopefully Game 7.
It might be a great time to call them, except during Game 7. So that's an interesting one, too. We can talk recruiter shop here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Aside from a strategically focused resume of a relevant candidate, aside from them being spot on for the job, what else could a candidate do externally as far as thought leadership to make them shine? Are you an advocate For me, it's not a deal breaker if someone doesn't have a robust LinkedIn profile. What I like to see is consistency between your resume and your LinkedIn at the very least.
Yep.
They don't have to have a robust LinkedIn profile, but what are other ways candidates could stand out and show that they're really involved in the space and in the industry?
So first thing you have to remember is not all candidates have LinkedIn profiles. Nurses. How many nurses do you know that have LinkedIn profiles?
Right.
Diesel mechanics. Diesel mechanics don't care less about LinkedIn.
They know
They may have LinkedIn etched on their wrench
Yeah.
for all I know, but no, they're not there. So we have to find ways to get their attention or find them in places where they're not naturally going to be. So one of the things that I've long told candidates in the event of social media is if you're going to be on Facebook or Instagram, like and share things from the companies that you work for, like and share brand elements from the industry that you're in. That'll tell me, without giving me a ton of intel of what you're doing, what kind of work that you're looking at, or are we somewhat related? Then I'm going to reach out because we're going to follow that content and lure them back to us.
Let's talk about folks that are new to the job market right now. It's got to be daunting out there. New folks.
New people to the job market?
New folks to the job market. They could be folks coming out of high school,
right.
Postgraduate, coming out there. It's rough. And right now, for the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about, white collar jobs here.
Okay.
It's daunting. It's daunting. You look out there. It's an employer driven market, and that means there are a surplus of candidates applying and there's not enough jobs, and it can be daunting too. So how do you, whether it be through Job Hunt Chat or elsewhere, how do you coach newer folks to the job market how to do it the right way?
Well, first thing, we're still seeing people doing this, is they're searching for jobs by job title.
Like title.
Why? Is the same job title that our friends at Work Fountain going to have is the same job title as somebody else?
No. There's no continuity or consistency or calibration when it comes to titles.
So what you have to do is you have to search by job duties that you enjoy, job duties that you're passionate about. That's what's going to pull a greater treasure trove of opportunities than just looking at job titles. Then you got to get off the normal avenues. Stop just looking at Indeed. I mean, Indeed's the greatest repository. So what? There are other things out there.
There's so many job boards.
Yeah.
Literally, do a Google search for remote jobs or jobs in your industry. You will find there's other aggregators out there.
Yep.
There are independent recruiters like myself. I have my own job board where I aggregate jobs from an affiliate perspective.
Yep.
And I have 100 jobs on my job board.
You can do a Google search of diesel mechanic jobs in Minnesota. Skip past everything that's on Indeed and see what else is out there that you're missing.
Or go right to the company.
By far. I tell people all the time, don't apply necessarily through a job board. Apply directly through the company page so you're seen easier, you're seen quicker, and you're seen as a top tier candidate versus the masses coming in through your job board.
Josh, what's your take when your hot take when people say the hidden job market? Is that real?
No. I mean, is there a quote unquote hidden job market? People that aren't advertising jobs that are being, filled internally, filled through communications, filled through relationships? Sure. We know that's going to happen. So build out your relationship. When I do a job search seminar, one of the questions I ask that's actually the third question, is what do you need to achieve number 1 and 2? Question number 1 is how much money do you want to make? Question number 2 is what do you really want to do? Question number 3 is how do you get there? What do you need? Additional work history, additional network, additional knowledge, etc., to obtain those 2 things. So literally that third question is what we're talking about. How are you going to get there? How are you going to uncover those roles that are in that hidden job market? It's a great piece.
And I tell people too, you're never too early. You might be too late, but you're never too early to start building your network.
Yeah.
And the way to approach it is, in my book, is you reach out to other folks within the industry. You're not reaching out with your hand out for a job.
No.
If you want to add a message in there, hey, I'm looking to learn and connect with you and just absorb your knowledge, from that perspective. And what really means is the hidden job market is, guess what? When a job is open and I have a relationship with Josh and I see something there, I'm going to ping him. I'm still have to apply because it's still not time in the ATS. But now Josh knows me and maybe he'll bring me to the front of the line from a conversation perspective.
When we talk about follow-ups, we talked about that a few minutes ago. One of the things I tell candidates to do in their follow-up is say, hey, what do you need from me to help make your hiring decision? Not what is the status of my application. When you reach out to somebody that you're connected to, whether it's a recruiter,
how you frame that.
Whether it's a recruiter, a leader, or a person that's in your network, person that's in your community, that you have some sort of connection to, it's not about your status. It's about their status.
Else I could tell you, or any questions I could answer?
Yeah.
Are you guys in your practice right now? How are you using AI?
So obviously there's the easy stuff, the surface level, job descriptions and policies. Simple, brainless.
Ads,
yeah. I
Billion.
don't necessarily use it for ads.
Well, what I like to do is I like to turn a job description into a job ad.
Yes.
And I use I use ChatGPT 4 with the right prompts to take it and put it in there when I'm doing my outreach.
Sure.
That's how I use it.
I mean, after 10 years in the job advertising industry, I kind of have an idea of how to take the legal mumbo jumbo that my HR team has given me and turn it into a job ad. So I don't necessarily use it that way. But what I'm doing is I'm taking some of it and rewriting Boolean searches, things that I might have missed, adapting certain positions that I may be not as familiar with, and then converting it that way.
I love it.
The policies and stuff are easy. I don't have time to sit there and write a 20-page policy on personal time off for volunteering. Right, we have a number of people that are in our organization that are firefighters, are emergency disaster relief personnel.
So they have to go.
They have to go. And we don't have a policy for it. So instead of taking 5 days to write a policy that's 5 pages long, I did it in an hour with ChatGPT.
And then you get it approved by
yep.
it. What's keeping you up at night these days in the space?
Oh, we talked about this yesterday. One of the things that I'm sick and tired of in this space is talking about AI theory. I'm done with it. I am completely
theory
tired.
Practice.
It's here. It's running around us. We need to stop talking about theory and start talking about ethical, practical usage of AI.
How can we use it? Unethical? Like, what are some unethical uses?
So, I mean, there are ways. I mean, one, bias. If we don't use the right prompts, we don't reframe the right prompts, what we're doing is AI is going to give us unnatural bias. So one is uncovering that, but also how leaders are using it in their own vein to say, hey, I didn't do it. AI did it for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's culpable deniability with AI, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there has to be some kind of accountability with
exactly.
AI. If you put in a prompt and you use what comes out of it, you should be held accountable.
Exactly.
We're going to institute some laws around that.
Oh, or policies.
She's a writer there in the entertainment
HR
space.
loves policy.
Topic for her.
Yeah. But no, I'm really tired about the constant talk of just service level talking about theory. We need to stop doing it and actually just have sessions. And even if it's a panel discussion of practitioners and vendors saying, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's working. Here's what we learned along the way. And here's the course to make those that are slower adopters, make that avenue a lot easier for them.
Are you guys Fountain customers?
We are not Fountain customers.
But what have you heard on the shoot? What have you heard great about Fountain?
So one thing about Fountain, when you look at that frontline volume, sourcing, attraction, hiring, onboarding, engagement, they really have a holistic suite for those that are doing scores of hiring in a really difficult timeline, which we're running in right now.
I love it. Let's leave everybody with some alpha here. What is the one thing that you are so excited that is finally innovating in this space? Or maybe it's what you're hearing from leadership, or maybe it's what you're hearing from candidates. Let's leave everybody with a little bit of positivity today, Josh.
There are obviously we know all the big players in the HR tech space. We could rattle off names. What I'm really excited about is I'm seeing some new startups in a variety of different ways. Some are doing amazing things with video that is simple and easy.
Love what MetaView's doing.
Yeah. Job Pixel is a good friends of mine.
Two friends, Omar and Sile over at MetaView.
Yep.
Omar Job Pixel.
Yeah, Omar's a great dude.
Yeah.
He actually reached out to me and said, hey, I love what you're talking about in the HR tech space. Could you sample my product and give us advice on how to connect with practitioners? That's what I love doing is helping.
They're trusting you.
Yeah. And being a former vendor, now being a practitioner, I've got a unique light that I can help those organizations do that. So one is some of the new technologies, some of the new providers in the space, some that have spun off from big organizations and are creating something new that really can harness and make day in the life of HR, especially my area in talent acquisition, that much easier and accountable.
I love it, man. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Where can folks find you? Where can they connect? Where can they learn more?
Easy. I'm on LinkedIn. You can easily find me, Josh Rock. Simple. You can find me on the X. Josh E. Rock. You'll find a lot of hockey stuff. Ignore it if you want to, but we'll obviously talk some HR stuff as well.
I think that this guy needs a proper podcast out there. I'm going to encourage you. I also want to be a resource. If you want to go down that path, I'm happy to talk shop around podcasting. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Let's do it, brother.
And enjoy the rest of your conference.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.